What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ALLSMITH. Today's guest is a board-certified neurosurgeon, a spine specialist, and the founder of the Institute of Neuro Innovation. He's the creator of the NeuroVella Brain Spa. And today's conversation is not just about surgery. It's about the operating system of the human experience. The brain, the spine, the nervous system, the invisible system shaping the way we think, we move, we perform, we recover, we regulate stress, we build relationships, and experience life itself. Modern life is neurologically really expensive, especially right now. We're overstimulated, we're under-recovered, we're disconnected from movement, addicted to the noise, and slowly drifting away from the environments and the habits that actually shape and help human beings truly feel alive. Today's conversation explores brain health, spinal performance, preventative medicine, nervous system regulation, modern stress, hustle culture, movement, and regenerative medicine, and the future of human optimization. If the brain and the nervous system shape the quality of our human experience, then protecting them may be one of the most important things we can do for our life. Today, I'm excited to introduce Dr. Amir Vokshoor for the second time. Round two, man. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my privilege. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited to chop it up today, man, because in a world of hustle culture, in a world of more is better, the world is accumulating junk miles. They're assuming that whatever they saw on social media, they should do, they should apply. It lives rent-free in their headspace, so whether they have a coach or a doctor, inevitably those conversations and that energy is entering into the hospital space or the gym or wherever they're trying to actively pursue self-improvement. With that being said, can you help people understand what the nervous system is?
Wow, that's a great one. That's a great question. I think to me is like there's so many interesting ways of looking at it, and a point of view matters a lot because that's what is interesting about knowing and knowledge in general is the lens through which you look at anything you're examining or your reality actually defines you as a person. And whenever I talk about the brain and spine, my holistic buddies say, "Oh, you're too technical. You're talking about medical jargon." And whenever I talk about it philosophically to my doctor friends, they're like, "Well, you're too woo, or you're talking about some spiritual stuff. That's not neuroscience." And I find that lens the most fascinating about the brain and the nervous system because ultimately, if you look at it, it's an organ. It's an electrochemical organ with a bunch of spikes and waves and electricity and 3 pounds of protein jelly that can process information. And so when you look at it from that standpoint, you're like, yeah, the way I like to put it is, kidney filters water or filters blood, the heart pumps blood, and the brain literally defines you. So it's like that's what's interesting about it is the literal definition of you and how you think and how you habitually think over a while, over time, really becomes part of your personality and part of your character. So that's the most interesting property of the nervous system. When you say, what is the nervous system? It's the organ system that biologically interacts with the environment to make the literal definition of you. And that's the most fascinating, I would say, lens to look at it through. And I absolutely find the awe-inspiring nature of its design elements, of its functionality, of the fact that it can generate information through the use of biological substrates like sugar and oxygen. Um, I mean, we could go on, but it's by far the final frontier for humanity, for us to discover. And there's so much to discover in it, including our own superpowers. And in the age where we're going to be in this age of singularity, competing or augmented by machines, I think it's very, very important to decode it further and think about the way we habituate. So, you mentioned the consumer mentality, or the more is more and more is better mentality. And I always like to say, I like to tell my children, like, be careful who is vying for your attention, because they're profiting from your attention. And your attention is the most important currency of your nervous system,
Wow, it's
whatever
so
you're attending
interesting that
to.
you said that, because when you podcast, you inevitably want to listen first, respond second. And I think a lot of people wait for someone else to stop talking before they speak. And I think part of nervous system regulation is noticing that. There's a meditative component when meditation is clearly making space between thought and response. And what's interesting is I just noticed time and time again as I'm listening to what you're saying is a lot of the nervous system is attention, which is our highest form of currency. People think it's time, but it's how do you spend that time? What do you focus on? What are the lenses looking after? And to take your definition even further and make it really easy to digest for people, you have your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, and then you have your parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. People look at the parasympathetic nervous system and, excuse my French, but they're like, you're a pussy. You don't need to do that. Like, just keep going. And it's like that gets romanticized in our world, right? Like, this person did this many miles, or, we're seeing things go viral of people not resting and just romanticizing. And I'm an Elon fan, but also just like his workflow is challenging. Like, personally, I don't want to be divorced. Like, I like my wife. I like my marriage. I like my friends
That's
and my
great.
family. And so just to
I hope
like,
my wife is watching.
sure. And it's just like, that's not to say his way of living is wrong. It's just like, in order to do the things he's doing with Tesla and SpaceX and all these different things politically and running X, it's like, how does he navigate all of those, keeping all those spinning plates going? But yes, that is incredible. Don't get me wrong. But you know what's also incredible? The gentleman that is over here that's very successful practicing the art of anonymity. Nobody knows what he's doing, doesn't feel the need to get the pat on the back and the validation from social media or whatever the world is saying you should do. He has a beautiful wife and a family that he does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. To me, that's peak expression. And that's no golden handcuffs. Nobody's buying you. Nobody's owning you. And you're not married to, I have to perform for love. And so looking at this conversation around,
I love the way you put that. I really do, because I always, and I've had this conversation with my wife, is the most important thing you can do with your partner or whoever you're on this journey with is define success for you.
sure,
And I think Elon would define success that, how do I get the servers to be more efficient? How do I get this engine to work perfectly when it lands? So I love his brain. I love his operating system, but it comes at a cost. And I think
yes,
you have very astutely pointed out that in your definition of fulfillment, contentment, happiness, that's not what you consider, peak experience. And I agree with you. I don't judge, but I agree that in my definition of success, the ability to stay anonymous, to have privacy, to have those like peak experiences when no one else is watching and no one needs to know about or watch them, is a higher orbital of conscious experience in my
sure.
book. That's the way I
Yeah,
define
I
it.
like the way you said that. And also, it's not to me about comparison, right? It's simply noticing. It's observing, and then you're seeing what's happening in the world. And the world is romanticizing. If you can run 20 miles, why can't you run 26.2? Why can't you run 30? Why can't you run 50? Why can't you run 100? And inevitably, in the pursuit of those things, do you have fitness or does fitness have you? Do you
I love
use
that. That's
fitness
a great
as a
thing.
tool to enhance the quality of your life? Or are you sacrificing quality food, relationships, your job, your service, your contribution to others? What's going on with working in? Are you only working out because more is better? And it's just an interesting component because we are human beings. We're not human doings. But because everything is videoed on this computer box that sits in our pocket, I personally think people are in pursuit of love and validation. And so then as a byproduct, their nervous system is, can I consume more? Can I do more? Can I learn more? Every time I go for a walk, I don't need to just breathe and listen to the birds and be enrolled in natural nature and practicing the art of what's going on with my right foot, my left foot. Can I be with myself? No, everybody's, I need to listen to the latest, greatest podcast. I need to listen to music. I need to have some form of artistic escapism or distraction because I actually don't like my own company. And I think there's a time and a place to integrate those things. Obviously, I love podcasting. I love sharing with people. And I love the ability to like turn off the phone and just be 100% where my feet are. For you, when you're thinking about how this human behavior right now infiltrates the human experience and that human experience infiltrating the nervous system, what are your thoughts there? Because it starts with that conversation before you get into any spine or brain or any sort of like natural element.
No, I love the way you put that. And I think, it is ultimately about what feeds the inner child, the inner need, the reward system that is built within us as at
Mm,
a very early age. Our childhood trauma, our experiences in school, our early mentors, are people that we look up to in the world, symbolic people in history that we admire. All of those things become tiny parts of our operating system. And unfortunately, there's a lot of hypocrisy in the world. There's a lot of, because the influencer that's doing it all and looks so great on Instagram is paying the price somewhere else. There is a lot of pain and anguish that is not apparent online. Um, and maybe, we don't want to see that online. Maybe we do want to numb ourselves with this, pseudo abundance. But what I encourage is that there is real abundance here if we actually respect the reset and the oscillatory rhythms of our biology, our nervous system, and our sense of purpose. So I feel like, mindset comes first. The intention, setting an intention of what kind of life you want to have. I think that is the most important thing. And then there is your physiology, your body, your cognition that can help you achieve that and validate that mindset. And then there is, the practice, your life practice, and what do you do to make art out of your life?
mm,
Not out of the anxiety of needing to doom scroll, but actually, what is your art? And I think that's the most fulfilling thing we can do to find purpose is to find our art. And it can be a complete anonymous situation where just your task is to really clean the building really well. And you live a very kind of, mediocre life, but it's fulfilled, it's happy, it's got all your needs met, and you have social contacts and you have love around you. To me, that's as high as any high achieving CEO or super athlete, but it has to feed the reward system well in a way that brings contentment and joy.
yeah. You planted so many seeds there that you are not even aware that I'm going to take a little watering thing and water all of them and try to get them to selfishly grow in this conversation because you just got me fired up. I'm like sweaty right now. In a beautiful way. First and foremost, if you have incentive, you can backtrack and predict behavior, right? And what's interesting is like, yes, I agree with you that, it comes from the inner child. The problem is most people aren't going to take the time, energy, attention, or put in their finances to explore the inner child. It's hard, it's emotional, it's vulnerable.
It's work.
It's work. You can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you can do it with a pen and paper. If you're following the right people, you're prompted a little bit. The inner child's huge. So I love that you pointed that out. For those of you listening, if you've not done that, like you are the way you are for a certain reason, you think the way you think for a certain reason, whether that's environment, the people you've been around, the phrases that were around, what you observed, like your lenses, the energy that you're around. We believe in Wi-Fi. It's a thing of energy. We can do stuff like this, remote conversations. But for whatever reason, we don't believe in the energy between people. There's something there. I challenge people to unpack it a little bit for sure.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, it's
I
one of
love
the
that.
things that I think, the body keeps the score, right? Beautiful book, but I love that line too. I think it's simple for people to understand that like everything impacts everything. Like you said, if you're going to do this, it comes at a cost. It's not, and the thing is, it's not always monetary, but in a world that we're in right now, there's a lot of money talks. Everybody wants to invest. Everybody's talking about cryptocurrency, the war, everything going on with peptides and the monetization of things, the stocks, all the jazz. People want money because money seemingly removes their biggest stress, which is living in this space of inadequacy. I'm not good enough. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. There's something to be said, Dr. Vokshoor, around security. And I would argue that the highest performers, people like Elon, entrepreneurs, they develop this relationship with uncertainty, this relationship with risk, and this relationship with uncertainty. But that's usually escapism.
That's a lot of nuggets.
It's
That's
a
a
lot.
lot of nuggets.
It's a lot. And I want to go there with you because for many people, that's escapism from the land of comfortable complacency. I was doing this thing over here. I thought it was safe. I thought it was this level of disruption took place. So F it. I'm going to take the leap and I'll figure out how to swim as I go. I'm jumping out of the plane and I'll figure out how to deploy the parachute. I don't care. And I think there's a mindset there that's like really powerful, but that mindset's also romanticized where people are like, oh, I think I have all the information. I'm going to follow suit and do this same thing. But there's also, in my opinion, there is beauty to the 9 to 5. There is security in the 9 to 5 being like, hey, I have a start point, I have an end point, and then I'm going to go do the things that I love. And then there's a hybrid model of like, I'm going to find a way to do some sort of both. But all of that impacts the nervous system. And what's so fascinating is the nervous system feels like this big umbrella thing where people are like, oh, you're just like saying this word that is clickbait. It's like, no. This thing is the remote control to your 1990s Nintendo 64. Like,
And your access to joy.
Yeah, your access to joy, your access to fear, your access to breathing. I mean, we breathe 20,000 plus times in a day, but most of us don't even realize that it's mouth breathing up in our chest and scalenes. And then as a byproduct, we have symptoms that come from being sympathetic all the time, which if you were to watch a dog, that's panting. Well, if you see a dog relaxed, it's the nervous system starts with, like you said, the mindset, which I want to also tackle later, but also the breath and the environment. Do we feel safe? And I threw a lot of nuggets at you right there, but like I still want to push back on how do we define the nervous system for people so they can better understand, okay, life is making me fight or flight because I'm in pursuit of money. How do I regulate that so I can have clarity of thought where money is a part of the story, but not the whole story?
I love that. And it also it reminds me of number one, like my relationship with money as a child, a teenager, as a college, as a medical student versus now. that relationship has changed due to a variety of factors, including me trying to define my definition of happiness. Because safety and security is one thing that's absolutely necessary. And I think we should all hustle to have enough to put food on the table. I think that's very necessary. What's not necessary is if you're already doing really well and you use money as an addictive way of feeding your reward system that's just used to that thrill. So that's gambling. And that's what you were describing with crypto, etc. There's a huge thrill. There's thrill seeking to get into the risk taking behavior. And that's what the gym bros like to talk about. Like, how do we get that risk taking behavior to reward us with adrenaline as much as possible?
Mm,
But that culture has a 75% line of people that have lost in it, and maybe 25%, maybe even less, maybe 1% really win. And as long as you understand that and your risk tolerance is okay with it, then that's part of your reward system. You win and lose, and your nervous system can train to be that stressed and you can recover from it. I'm not made like that nervous system, and I think I like the hybrid model that you described,
me
where
too.
you have a version of 9 to 5 to make sure that the minimum is done. And then you use the surplus to do what you will, a little bit of risk-taking behavior, ideally calculated risk, ideally full of knowledge, ideally with some advice. And then you win or lose based on a huge number of factors, including luck, which is its own universe. Um, and then you have to make your next best decision. The worst thing is when you're caught in a situation where you haven't met the basic needs, you don't have safety or security, and you're depending on massive risk-taking behavior to just make the minimum happen because you're not okay with the minimum and you're trying to reach the top. And unfortunately, it reminds me of like who's that hip hop artist, Get Rich or Die Trying.
Oh yeah,
So
50 Cent.
it's like, yeah, it's like that's not a great mentality for the entire humanity. It's a great mentality for 0.0001% of people who are gifted in that way. And unfortunately, some of those will pay the highest price, including their life. That's why it's
Yeah,
called Get
totally,
Rich or Die Trying.
for sure.
So yeah.
No, I like the way
But
you
you threw
articulated
so
that.
many other nuggets at me there that I should probably start writing down these things because you're like filled
My
with
mind goes fast, man. But
it's
I
pretty
don't need you to
fast.
address them all right now. I'll bring them back to the
Okay.
forefront. But real quickly on 50 Cent, like, man, that guy's like, he came out with that P Diddy documentary. He's doing all kinds of things. It's pretty cool to see how our mindset wants to label somebody as just like, oh, they're a hip hop artist. It's like, well, he's also a TV producer now. He's also an entrepreneur. It's like, whoa, people are really complex. They're multifaceted, but they're also malleable. If they're this, they can become that. And that's an element of the nervous system that I very much appreciate because it shows that
I
every
love that.
moment is an opportunity to begin again. You're not fixed. You're not concrete. How do you
I love
address
that.
that with your patients? Because you sort of alluded to this contrast that I want to play with, which is, hey, there's documented evidence-based science, and then there's woo-woo. And it's like woo-woo is kind of disrespectful because it should fit somewhere in the messy middle between the two of those. Because anecdotal evidence from lifestyle-based experience plays a role within medicine. Like we talked about briefly on our first podcast, you can have evidence-based science in a shitty bedside manner, and the patient's healing journey is not going to be great. But you can have
That's fascinating.
evidence-based science, an awesome bedside manner, and that combination is a recipe for a beautiful rest of your life.
Indeed.
I
And I,
want
and I
to,
and I really shoot for that. You're absolutely right. It's like when you connect with a patient at a level where they realize that you consider being their physician and surgeon a privilege, that team works the best because they trust you, that they're already in that healing mode that I love to incite in my patients,
Hmm.
even pre-surgically. And I think you threw a few awesome things out there that I'd like to point out. One is, yeah, sifting through the fog of information, disinformation, misinformation, and good information is the most important thing science provides. So good science is always on trial. It's ready to be corrected. It doesn't have an ego about its truth or dogma. If you see truth or dogma in science, you're not dealing with good science. So then that's what
Real
happened with the
quickly,
amyloid hypothesis.
real quickly, that what you just said is gold. The phrase "trust the science" is blasphemy because science is always in pursuit. The same way we as humans are always in pursuit. We're learning, we're evolving. Science is malleable. Science is not an ego-based, fixated thing to create some sort of psychological manipulation for profit.
And I think trust the evolving nature of science is a very decent way of saying that. Trust the fact that science is doing its best to giving the best information out there, and it will be changed in 10 years.
How does
And
somebody
in one
trust
year,
that right now? Right? Like I want to, and I think doctors and physicians like yourself, Dr. Ron Torrance, who we've had on the show, other people that we're having hard conversations like this, and I'm taking my little curious finger and poking holes in the argument. But right now, Dr. Vokshoor, the trust isn't there. People are looking back at COVID. They're seeing the trials and the issues with Dr. Fauci. They're then using that as a bit of like, they're not trusting hantavirus. They're curious around what these ticks are that are going around causing allergic reactions to protein. They're seeing what's going on with Lyme disease. And it seems like all kinds of manipulation where I think the trust in science is moving away. And then
has
all of
been
a
eroded
sudden,
significantly.
yeah. And so now people are leaning more towards this naturopathic pursuit. Before we unpack that, how do we recreate trust there? Because if Big Pharma is funding every study and they're not funding things that they can't patent, i.e. peptides, how do we trust science at all anymore if it's always for profit seemingly? This episode of ALLSMITH is brought to you by our friends over at Kalo and their new smart ring. I've been wearing the Kalo smart ring the past few months, and I love how simple it is. It seamlessly fits within my lifestyle and is not invasive into any elements of my life. It tracks my sleep, my movement, my heart rate, my HRV, my stress, my body temperature, and it gives you real awareness around your lifestyle and how it's impacting your recovery and performance. What makes it perfect for me is simply the versatility. I can wear it while coaching, while training, while working, while sleeping, or just living life, and it quietly collects the data in the background. And the best part is it's under $200 and there's zero subscription. No monthly fees, no gimmicks, just clean, affordable health tech. Head over to kalo.com/allsmith and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to get your discount. You can also find it at select Walmart stores and at walmart.com. Now let's get back to the show.
That's a 5-hour conversation, but I will let you, I'm the victim of that as well. As a human being, as a son, I saw my father taking drugs for Alzheimer's that did not work, that had billions of dollars of research money wasted on them because of an erroneous hypothesis about, amyloid plaques or something like that. And most of that data was found later to be manipulated. So as a clinician scientist who loves science, we're all victims of bad science. So the trust in science has been eroded. I formed a nonprofit. We initially say we would never work with pharma because of that exact asymmetry that you see in their bias toward science. But when you really get down to it, you know, good science is still being done at pharma level, at university level, etc. It's just you need high integrity scientists to be at the leadership of the FDA and pharma, etc., to sift through the, literally a sifting mechanism and say, this makes sense. Oh no, let's pivot. Let's really pivot and go somewhere radical. And I think we're seeing that the public's trust in science has been eroded because of what you've witnessed after COVID, et cetera. And I think that's an absolute, I would say, loss on medicine, on our ability to be the trusted source of information. So this transition period is going to be very difficult. And that's why, as you know, we have a nonprofit that has literally two goals: explain the clarity of benefit of these, everything from PRP to exosomes to stem cells, plus look at the strength of evidence. And unfortunately, due to rigid statistical standards, we can't take one subject and say, okay, this pill worked on this subject, therefore, But if we have a randomized controlled trial that's doubly blinded, that's got a control, then we can trust the information a little better. And it's nuanced because we do have anecdotes of certain things working for certain people, but not the general public. And, we call that idiopathic reactions, et cetera. But I do think without science, we're back to the dark ages. We're in,
Yeah.
pre-Renaissance era. So we have to evolve this into high integrity science.
Yeah, I like that phrasing a lot. High integrity science. That's beautiful. That's something I just want to like highlight in bold, underline, 17 exclamation marks.
And we have these AI tools, and we need to train them for integrity, for compassion, for empathy, which makes good doctors good doctors. So I think as much as we want them to have processing power and be able to solve all of our corporate problems and win, pick winning stocks, etc., we need to spend time for high integrity science, compassion, and empathy, because these are very powerful tools. They're going to help us if we do it right.
Love your passion, man. I also think people don't buy what you do necessarily. They buy why you do it. So I want to backtrack a little bit. You had mentioned your father who had passed away from Alzheimer's. Was that a big pivotal moment in your life as to why you decided to take a deep dive into medicine and operate the way you do?
So I was already a neurosurgeon, and I was at the I would say rising slope of my career, learning to do great brain tumor surgery, spine surgery, decompressing spinal cords, um, and that's why it really caught me off guard. I was like, wait a second, I've been giving my poor father, who literally got ravaged by this disease, the wrong medicines for like 10 years. And that's what, I was like, okay, I'm a neurosurgeon. I'm at the one of the top fields of medicine. And even I got caught in a situation where I was like, well, this was not done correctly. And this was a disservice to my father. And it was a calling. It was almost like some people grieve in certain, whatever way they can. My grief was to form a nonprofit research organization. And I was like, we owe the public to do better. We owe future fathers like mine to do a better job. And I don't think it was I don't think it was apparent to me how hard it is to do good science and high integrity science and get appropriate funding and stay in that edge of the frontier medicine, but stay skeptical enough about it not to promote everything outright. Like everyone's super excited about exosomes, proteins, PRP, stem cells, peptides. All of those we know in 5 to 10 years will have a clear strength or clarity of benefit, strength of effect, as well as evidence, scientific evidence, because they'll either work on a huge population of patients or will not, or will be mediocre or be harmful. And we need to know that data. We really need it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the growth and evolution of those types of medicines for sure. I feel like there's a similarity or a cross bridging with marijuana a little bit because of dosage, right? Like there's a an assumption of dosage for things like BPC 157, which seemingly is one of the most popular peptides right now. And for people that don't know, it's very much talked about by Dr. Andy Huberman, by Joe Rogan, by some of the biggest podcasts in the world. And in some ways, just on Sean Ryan, it was demonized for a second because they were talking about angiogenesis. They were talking about the development of new blood vessels, promoting blood to certain areas to help the enhancement of tissue, especially like for jiu-jitsu guys. That's always talked about Rogan because they're pulling on the gis and they get that medial epicondyle or that inner elbow pain. But then it was demonized for a little bit of like, oh, this angiogenesis, this promotion of blood cells could potentially enhance cancer or tumors. What are your thoughts on some of these narratives? Because on one end of the coin, you have continued growth of anecdotal evidence, which is sharing of testimony from people being like, whoa, when I took this, I got back to doing the things that I love. On the other end of the coin, there's fear that this could be feeding cancer. And then somewhere in the conversation is, oh, there's a negative marinade on peptides because Big Pharma can't patent them because they're simply creating a signal within the body to do things that it already does. Where do you land on the conversation of peptides? Because everybody wants to know.
I love it. I love it. It goes in so many directions. I love that you have first of all, it also shows the evolving nature of information and science. And you can't trust the first influencer that just, says, "Oh, this is great." Um, the human body is a very complex machine. Our immune system, our gut, our propensity to have certain things, certain growth factors work versus not work is not a 2 + 2 = 4. So, people that are prone to cancer formation due to a variety of factors, some of which are genetic, some of which are environmental, some of which are intestinal or immune related or other, um, should not take BPC 157 that promotes angiogenesis. Um, if you have a history of breast cancer, if you have a history of even skin cancer, you should be careful and you should get lab tested and you should get whole body scans or you should get everything checked by a professional. But to just simply say it's dangerous, that's not true either. So the way the body works, we use the term inflammation for everything. It's like it's like the laundry basket term for any bodily process that heals. So when we do spine surgery, the body heals, and we call it healing. Some of that healing is scar formation. Every single one of us scars differently. The way the fibroblasts come together, the way we put tissue together. Some people scar hard, just like people bruise differently under skin. The same thing happens inside our body. So these processes that are undergoing the oxidative stress of wear and tear and aging, they are the same processes that BPC 157 is acting on. And if it promotes angiogenesis to a bruised knee and a bruised muscle or soft tissue or a jujitsu participant's medial epicondyle, then yeah, by all means, that's fantastic. If you are prone to cancer, have a history of cancer, have circulating cancer cells due to you've gone through the testing that's now available through Gallery and other tests, then it's a cautionary tale for you to be on that substance. And I think we will have better precision medicine as time goes on, as our labs get better, as our surveillance systems get better. And there's a slew of peptides that are going to be amazing. I mean, the GLP-1 revolution is here, and we're looking at it, and I'm looking at it in absolute amazement and a little bit of like cautionary tale to make sure there's no side effects, to make sure people are not losing muscle mass, all kinds of other stuff. But I think it's a huge plus of good science eventually actually winning, and that's what I'm excited about. So we're in that transition zone where it's going to be, but it caused this, but it benefited this, but it caused this, but it benefited this. So idiosyncratic reactions, um, cancers, angiogenesis. Those are the side effects of a very powerful peptide.
Yeah, very well said. And what I'm gathering from this, Dr. Vokshoor, is the answer to almost every question is it depends. But right now, we're in a world of I want security, I want the answer, I want safety. I go back to that because those are nervous system regulation spaces. Like every month, I want to make this much money. I want to know where I'm going to go to work. I want to have a routine, right? Everybody you see, oh, I just got back from vacation. Although we had fun, I'm thankful to get back to my routine. Humans, you watch how children are raised, the same bedtime. You look at our circadian rhythm. Understanding routine matters. Well, it also goes into the formation of our headspace, going back to the education system. Here's a curriculum. Here's a pathway. Here's a pattern. You hire a coach. You want to see periodization or progression. Last week I lifted this. This week I'm lifting that. The world and humans doesn't work that way. It's a freaking clusterfuck. And until people surrender to it depends, try something, experiment with it, develop a relationship with it, and then develop a pathway forward that's customized to you and work with people that are willing to get into the weeds and have that conversation with you, which you're one of the few doctors that will, which is expensive on time. It's expensive on money. And so when you look at this system, you talked previously around, which I want to deconstruct real quick, the evidence-based science and the woo-woo. The evidence-based science comes with, this is from a reputable source, meaning they have credentialism, letters after their name. I would argue, yes, that's true. And there's brainwashing associated with that. There's a ton of student debt accumulated with that. You never learned anything about nutrition in medical school, which we've seen from Paul Saladino. There's negative associated with that as well. So when I see Dr. So-and-so, I'm not going, I trust you. I'm going to give you my money. I'm saying it depends. You could be a phenomenal truth-based doctor that's in pursuit of healing me. You could also be 100% burnt out, just trying to make money to pay off your student loans to head home to your family and be giving the middle finger to the system. But then the other side of the coin that you discussed, this woo-woo culture, is perceived as, you were a yoga instructor one day and you did ayahuasca and all of a sudden now you believe in ibogaine and ivermectin and, all these different things that maybe they have sort of research, but you mostly just listen to Joe Rogan and other people that kind of manipulated your headspace, and you joined the CrossFit or the High Rocks cult, and all of a sudden you learned, A plus B equals C, and so you're going to push these things in a narrative. It's like that stuff could be great too, and it doesn't come with credentialism, and not everybody that does that is bad. And so now we've created this politicism associated with health. Like even MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, is perceived as MAGA, and now all of a sudden you're picking a side. It's like, I thought it was good to be healthy, not political. I thought it was good to be like, hey, you have credentials and you're paying attention to the upgrades with things that are going on biologically and environmentally. What happened, man? This divisiveness is leaving everybody confused, frustrated, and just throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks, or just judging everything and not being curious anymore.
I love the way you put that. That's you really summarized my entire feeling about this, and I was so surprised during COVID, being so naive about medicine and science, that it got political. And in an ultimate science-based system, we would say this is evolving information, and we don't know everything we need to know, and we know social distancing may be good, but it has these deleterious effects. Isolation has these deleterious effects. Let's try to make some sense out of it. Not that red states are open and they don't care about the virus, and the blue states are completely closed down and they really care about the virus. And I was shocked was absolutely shocked on how a virus can divide a nation based on information. But I think what you're saying is that, the Joe Rogan University has some nuggets of information, and the super credentialed doctors that have done a terrible job defending science, they're on trial now. They need to prove themselves again to the public. Um, and yeah, Maha, there's nothing wrong with the messaging of making America healthy. There should be nothing wrong, but we also need to realized that some of the science that came out of FDA and Fauci and the old guard was good science, and we just need to be okay with that. It's not like, it's like the Bible versus the Torah. Like it's like, both books have essential information in them that we need to take for what it's worth and get the best of all worlds. So the old scientific system was great as long as the data wasn't fudged and as long as it remained open instead of dogmatic. So, and I think that's where FDA should go. Like instead of being, be less dogmatic, be open, but also present the evidence and be ready to pivot, be ready to pivot. And I think what was lost in the pandemic more than anything else was a cohesive messaging that said, we know some of this may not be true. This is the best we got right now. And I think a lot of theories went around profitability for the mRNA, science method, and a lot of people made a lot of money based on, those vaccinations. So, I just think cohesive messaging and transparency was completely lost. We got politicization, and that has continued. So now we have the same thing going on with the Joe Rogan culture, which I actually really find fascinating because ultimately I'm on the front of saying, let's get high integrity science back into the cool people's book again. And look at the information coming out of peptides and exosomes and GLP-1s and Joe Rogan University and all those podcasts. Look at it with a very good, open, non-dogmatic scientific eye and help the public. We're here to decipher the information to the best of our ability instead of constantly saying, oh, you're Maha. That means that, you only want to eat red meat and you don't care about science. That messaging has to stop for us to like just make sense of the situation.
Yeah, it's all or nothing thinking. And when people talk and ask like, hey, what is ALLSMITH? What are we trying to do with our conversations? One of my favorite lines from a healer that I used to work with, she used to say, take what you need and leave the rest. And the way I think about it is like you're making a customized lifestyle smoothie for yourself. We're taking a little bit of old school science. We're taking a little bit of new school science. We're taking a little bit of like the foundational of like push, pull, squat, hinge, carry, do some monostructural things. Okay, sunlight seemingly is pretty good. Okay, now we're understanding that like there's a lot of cancerous ingredients, not only in our water and things that our skin and our body get exposed to and microplastics and all those things, but also like some of these lotions, these colognes, there's parabens, there's things that we should just be aware of. I'm not saying they're all bad or they're all good. And that's where people have kind of gotten, it's like, no, take a little bit from all the different places based on your definition of success and happiness, where we started our conversation today, put it into your smoothie and realize that that's not truth. This is what I know up until this point, and this is serving me in this season of life. Maybe there's a woman that just had a baby and she's postpartum and that same ingredient profile isn't working anymore. Well, don't be so stubborn and married to that same lifestyle that you're unwilling to shift a couple things. And it's like what worked for me in my 20s being a pro athlete. It's like, whoa, that volume, I can't handle anymore. I can't smash caffeine the way I once could. Like I have to change my operating system. There's a reason why your iPhone sends you a message and says, hey, can we update the OS? You have updates that are available for you. You see it on Google Chrome. You see it on all these things. But we as humans also need to do that. How do we do this language upgrade and this shift in tone where it's not creating a social hierarchy? It's like, no, like those at the top are collaborating. They're not competing. How can we all be on the same team to, like you said, sift through the murkiness, share with one another what's working and what's not working, and not make it about like, no, I'm going to make the money, not you. I'm going to get the good lifestyle, not you. It's like, I'm not pushing for socialism here by any means, but I am saying that like there's a way here for us to use free will to integrate the various ingredients of medicine and lifestyle to create a beautiful life and do the things that we love. How do we create psychological buy-in with that, Dr. Vokshoor?
I love it. That's literally the holy grail, what you just described. If every human being can even listen to that and take it in, two things come to mind. One is the mystery of life. The fact that every day you wake up and you have the opportunity to be a new and improved version of yourself or a different version of yourself. And if you can acknowledge that your operating system has not come online and you feel like yourself is here, you feel like yourself, that's all hallucination that the brain's done. The whole thing is like an amazing simulation or design that your nervous system has put together. And then we have a thing called belief. And that's why faith is so powerful, because when everything is malleable and changing and no certainty exists, the only thing you can lean on is you have God. And it's such a powerful thing. And I'm not a super religious person by any means. I'm more of a, I would say scientist if anything, but I really believe in the power that provides some people that can't live with that uncertainty and brings anxiety to their living. So I would say psycho-spiritual health is a pillar that you can lean on when everything is kind of mobile and you're trying to sift through this murkiness as an individual and you feel helpless. So that's an interesting thing, but also a concept that you have balance. I think competition can be healthy. I think wanting to win as you were a pro athlete also provides the perfect ingredient for you achieving your best, the best in yourself. When I play chess with my nephew, I'm super competitive. He's a better chess player, but he gets it out of my brain to try to do my best, and it comes with stress. I actually laugh at myself about how stressed I am because of some move I'm making on a computer. So I feel like good stress is our food, is nourishment for the nervous system. And realizing that you need to have this oscillation between good stress and recovery, and then using that stress from the uncertainty, from the psychosocial stressors, from the financial stressors to better yourself is the best strategy you can have.
Yeah. I think that's a really cool thought experiment for people to play with. And I'll leave them with a question. Why do you feel the need to pick a side when there's bits and pieces of all of it that work? And I just remember when my mom was alive, like she was so confused. She was like, are carbs good or carbs bad? Low fat or high fat? Should I have meat or should I be vegan? And like that confusion, in my opinion, was placed there on purpose. You see how the food pyramid was recently switched, and there was just this big conversation with Whoopi Goldberg, and she's like, oh, this isn't science-based, da-da-da. And the gentleman, I'll see if we can pull this clip and put it into the show notes, but he just put a picture of the two of them. And it's like, I'm not saying that like, we should be judgmental of everybody's looks or any of that, but like there is an element of perception is reality. If this person over here is perceived as a credentialed expert, but they're obese, out of shape, have skin issues, and inevitably are not living to their peak expression, but they trust the science. And then you've got this person over here who is being demonized in this conversation, RFK Jr., and in his 70s, it's like he's talking a little bit about peptides. He's talking about eating real food. He's talking about doing the things that he loves well into his 80s and beyond. inevitably you have to take that in and like remove the political judgment and just be an observer and be like, okay, if in your 70s you're doing pull-ups, you're doing push-ups, you're running, you're able to climb a rope, you're able to throw a football, you can go jump into the beach a little bit. Well, if you're doing that physically, what's going on mentally? Oh, you can do mental gymnastics. You can handle high levels of stress. You can make hard decisions. You can be present. You can have discipline. Why is that seemingly not credentialed? Why is that demonized just because he seemingly has affiliation with a party?
No, I agree with you. I'm a as my friends actually say, I'm a militant centrist because I like to take the best of information from all sides,
Sure.
and mostly because I want my patients to realize that I'm there for them. And I've met RFK, and I really, I appreciate the nuggets that he has entered into the conversation because there is a conversation that we need to have. Science is always on trial. If we're not improving, that's not good science. Everything from childhood vaccinations to the food pyramid, like everything should be reexamined. If we're not, the renaissance of information is about the movement of information. And as we learn more about the microbiome health, as we learn more about the way insulin works, as we learn more about the brain is so involved in metabolism of insulin, which is fascinating. I mean, Alzheimer's is one of the theories that is diabetes type 3. So I'm a huge proponent of disrupt the system, change everything, look at everything with a very critical eye, knowing full well that if in 50 years half the stuff we're talking about is not total BS, then we haven't done good science. So just imagine that everything we hold so dearly about our food pyramid, about our truths, will be completely revised with better information in 50 years.
Yeah, that analogy that comes to mind there is what I like about the woo-woo side, is that if you hold on to something so tight, you can't really hold that much. You can't hold a ton of sand, just to use that as an analogy. But if I loosen my grip and I make space and spread my fingers a little bit, it might filter some of the things that aren't the best, but I'm going to be able to hold a little bit more sand, and then I have more material to sift through and learn. And that's what I appreciate, just to give RFK Jr. a shout out, is that he has the courage to bring these things to the conversation and challenge Big Pharma, knowing very well that to a lot of the world, fear is a great motivator. I'm sure he's had his life threatened. There's a lot of money flowing through Big Pharma. A lot of that money is paying high-level doctors. A lot of those doctors are invested in things like Eli Lilly, in things like Pfizer. And those companies are now behind the scenes infiltrating Big Pharma, infiltrating politics. And so you have to just take into consideration that, like, hey, you're going to say this because I'm paying you to sponsor your show. And based on that payment, I'm going to control your headspace and the delivery of information. And I mean, we saw that with ivermectin being categorized as simply a horse dewormer, even though it's a Nobel Prize winning drug. Then we saw Mel Gibson get demonized over fenbenzynol. And so I'm not saying, this is right, this is wrong for everybody. I am saying that these things should be allowed into that open palm on each side to hold more information. It's like, hey, let's toss this hat into the ring and let's deconstruct it. Let's have the conversation. Let's not just say, oh, that's wrong, it's just this, simply because we're pushing the narrative of a monetary vaccine that has shown to have tremendous side effects for a lot of people and caused a lot of deaths, especially in comparison to the deaths of World War II. So, like, you just have to call a spade and just be mindful. It's like, this isn't picking a side. It's throwing objectified information into the ring and being like, hey, let's tinker with it like Play-Doh. Let's talk about it. Why are people unwilling to do that?
Well, it's fear-based. I mean, like ultimately, like being a parent myself, like we're gonna send my son to, public school and they want a set of vaccinations or he can't come in. So everything has been protocolized, not just simply based on fear, because people need certainty. from science. They seek certainty, and that's what happened during the pandemic when the information was hot off the press, and they were trying to say this is this is absolutely the truth, and it wasn't because information was evolving as we learn more and more about it. So I think we almost need like multiple gears. It's like this is the best we can do right now, and then this is halfway in, and then this is completely investigational, but we're going to actively engage it at FDA level, at the best scientific level with the best funding possible. So that's where I think some of the opportunities will lie. And I do think big pharma, and believe it or not, guess what? They're also part of like the pension plan of millions of Americans, just like our insurance companies for healthcare are that, we're fighting every day to get better care for our patients. So this is, it's not just a simple political lobby. It's intertwined into our system and into our financial system in a way that they're too big to fail, almost like the 2008 situation with, with the world financial system. So um, you can't completely get rid of it because society needs some stability in the financial markets, in the pensions, etc. We need to convince pharma to spend more on some of the stuff that you just mentioned. And for example, they did it with GLP-1s because it's profitable. But how do they do it with a peptide that's not profitable? Why don't we have a congressional mandate that if you're making gazillion dollars on GLP-1s and GLP-2 and third generation, you have to put 10% of that into peptides that don't make you any money. And there has to be a governmental body that actually sees that to fruition. And, and why don't we give the doctors or the scientists that dedicate their life to that kind of low profitability kind of research some tax breaks where they're putting their hard-earned hours into that kind of research that doesn't make as much money as the GLPs, but it's very important information. And I have a meditation spa, and everybody is like, how are you going to make this profitable? And I'm like, I'm going to do it after I don't need the profit anymore because I really believe in meditation for my patients. And I believe in the technology around meditation, which is, brain mapping and light therapy and photobiomodulation and all kinds of other stuff. But some of it may make money, some of it may not. But I know it's good for my patients. So how do we make things that are good for humanity universally available without this asymmetry of needing to profit off them to make them available?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm big with meditation, man. Literally, I was just listening to 528 hertz on the way here and just navigating some of the different frequencies to get my headspace in a good spot, my breathing pattern in a good spot. I do that or a version of that before I enter any podcast. And people are busy, man. Like they're constantly trying to fill space. And I think we need to create space, right? Like there's a reason for spring cleaning. There's a reason why like organization matters. There's a reason why Jordan Peterson says, if you want to change your life, clean your room. When you create space, it allows a gap between, I had this thought and then I have this response or this reaction. There's a bigger space. Or as they talk about in that very famous book, between stimulus and response, there's a space. Within that space is our power to choose. But that choosing comes from either a regulated or dysregulated nervous system. And so I'm a big fan of the fact that you're pushing for meditation. It's freaking hard, man. It's hard to sit there. And at least for me, there's a lot of thoughts coming in some days. And I try to allow them to come, notice them, not judge them, and then allow them to go and simply cut the cord. And I really 100%. Highly recommend that for people. It's not something I would say I'm good at. It's something I would say I'm consistent at practicing. The same way we are enrolled.
Same here.
Yeah, the same way we're enrolled in these types of conversations. You mentioned gut health and gut microbiome. And I saw a post the other day around there's certain child play areas that were previously rubber, And I think some of that was to prevent, or have a little bit of padding if people were to fall from like the monkey bars of some sort. I think there's a cleanliness factor that makes it appear to the human eye a little bit cleaner. But they did a comparison versus, hey, having a rubber bottom versus having like dirt and grass. And the immune system of the kids playing in the dirt and the grass enhanced their gut microbiome, which then enhanced their immunity. And
Incredible.
it's an interesting thought, right?
Incredible.
Like one is grounding, one is really connecting with nature, and then one is
Wow.
man-made. And then all of a sudden, when you look at this man-made thing, like what comes to mind is like, allow yourself to be dirty because it's biological. And then on the other side, it's like hand sanitize everything. Can you help
Wow.
people kind of understand that a little bit? Like you're saying wow, and I say wow, but I want people listening to understand why we're saying wow to that.
I want my wife to listen to this part. It's she's on the sanitizer side and I'm on the dirt side for
Hmm.
sure. So basically, there are we have to respect what we are as biological organisms. We're part of Earth. We're part of this organic smorgasbord. And when we're challenged with like playing in dirt and having dirty hands, etc., our immune system gets challenged early. So there's some data to say that that helps the immune system kind of deal with antigens very early on because it's very efficient, it's very young. And of course, it can also bring illness. So I'm certainly not promoting, people staying dirty. But the concept that the soil of where we interact, where we walk, where we play, had some effects on our microbiome is for sure, but mostly through food. Mostly the soil affects the food which you eat, and you become part of that microbiome. And everywhere in the world, this has been studied. Our one of our board members, Dr. Emmerin Mayer, is actually he's written a lot on the gut-brain connection. He's a fantastic resource for that. He's a UCLA professor, and I have these conversations with him. It's about soil and what happens to the dirt as far as the different types of mold and bacteria and everything that are present in that area of the world basically interacts and makes your microbiome or the child's microbiome a certain way. And with the plastic thing, certainly I'm a huge fan of that padding and safety, but you also have to make sure that it's manufactured without toxins in it and things of that sort, because those can have deleterious effects on the young immune system.
Not to mention the shifting of temperature, right? Like when plastic and when rubber is heated, now it emits an odor. Now it has a shifting of chemicals, which
Chemicals, right?
if that's being absorbed into the feet, like just things to take into consideration. I'm not saying all or nothing. As a kid, I drank from the hose. We played outside a lot. Like, yes, we obviously took showers. Yes, like, we went out and got dirty and played in the leaves and did different things. But I'd also say, like, exposure therapy is huge, right? And if you, like, put an animal or if you put a human into a container and not allow them to have any sort of exposure therapy, like inevitably every little exposure thereon after, they're going to have some sort of reaction, positive, negative, maybe indifferent sometimes, but like I think early exposure is really keen to the human experience. And also not wearing shoes early on, letting your toes spread, not putting yourself in a cast really early on. Exposure to sunlight, exposure to the air, to the breathing, to critical thinking, to allowing yourself to be bored. That's the big one
Love
that,
that.
that we had in the 80s and the 90s. What are your thoughts on nervous system regulation in relation to boredom? Because modern day people just grab the phone, scroll, find something to listen to. I think it's really important to be bored because that's just like the space of innovation.
I love that. I promote that with my children all the time when they have nothing to do and they say I'm bored. I'm like, I literally tell them, I was like, that's the best thing that could happen to your brain right now. Just be bored. Just be bored. Be in it. Like us in the 80s waiting at the bus stop, like with nothing to do. Um, I think, that's a huge nugget that the nervous system is oscillatory. it needs reset time. It needs to purge information. It needs to imagine things. That's the healthiest state for it. If you're constantly looking at a screen, it's stealing your attentional spotlight. So you cannot come up with your own internal heuristics of imagining things and connecting things that are not associated necessarily. It's constantly telling you what to associate, what to associate, what to associate. So it's a little bit Orwellian what's happening right now with our youth and social media, because the social media algorithms are creating the future brains. So all you and I are saying is, if we have a reset protocol in nature where we do nothing, where we just take it all in, I believe in the future we will actually scientifically be able to validate the energies that you and I are talking about as boredom or whatever, as to this other energy that are available to the nervous system, that in which the nervous system is acting like an antenna. When I walk to the beach, walk on the pier or something like that, there's other almost like little bites of nourishment for our nervous system that's coming to me. I just feel energized. And is it from the air? Is it from the atmosphere? Is it from the scenery? Maybe all of the above. But that's why early human beings, had this sensation of joy when they were in a savanna where you have trees and abundance, but it's not the rainforest, it's not too dangerous, but it's the trees are spaced out so you can see danger. There's a reason our nervous system is anciently connected to Earth in that way. And I think those energies are to be harnessed. I mean, we are in a tiny bubble, a tiny blue bubble, swimming through space, or tiny spaceship, if you call it. And we need to acknowledge the beautiful atmosphere and the nature that is feeding our nervous system.
And what you just said, in my opinion, meditation unlocks the capacity to get that level of life. And I was very thankful to be raised by parents that would say, wonder and wander. And in wondering and wandering, you're like, okay, what's that texture underneath my feet? What's the sand between my toes? Why is that water cold? That water's warm. What is that rock? Why is that person with facial hair and that one's not? That's long hair, that's short hair. That's a tone. That person's yelling. This person's doing cartwheels. They're throwing the ball. That's a bird. Oh my gosh, that's a different bird. Oh wow, the tree seemingly has an energy and a frequency. You start to notice things that when your head is down, you're in this kyphotic, rounded upper back posture, and you're just marinating yourself in
Don't even get me started on that.
With forward head tilt. You're not aware of your surroundings. You're actually easier to kill because you're walking across the street without observing your environment. And so I think a lot of this, when I'm pushing people to meditate, I'm not like trying to make you this woo-woo enlightened, whatever. It's like, I want you to choose what that version of your peace is. But what I am saying is there's a lot going on all the time. And we grant everything a permission slip to live rent-free in between our ears, and to invite them in to have a conversation with our nervous system. Our behavior, our energy, our thought patterns are all infiltrated by all of this. And simply observing gives us the opportunity to then be like, oh, I actually want to add that to my lifestyle smoothie. That's pretty cool. Or, whoa, I really don't like that. I'm going to take that out of that smoothie. I'm going to put it over there, and I'm going to kind of create some distance there. And so what I'm trying to do is create a beautiful life for people. I call myself a lifestyle architect. Let's create a beautiful life. But that starts from awareness. You have to know what it is that you desire. What do you want? What is your version of success? What does that picture look like? But almost as important as that is, what do you not want? And in learning what you don't want, you have to be an active participant. And I think our world right now, especially from a nervous system standpoint, they're not actively participating, or in yoga, they would say, make it to your mat. They're actively consuming. Every experience is, what can I get? As opposed to, how do I come play? And I think children, when they're freaking bored, they show up to the sandbox or to the playground or to the classroom or to whatever their extracurricular is. And they're thinking, oh, how do I play? How do I observe here? What's going on? What's the energy? There's a childlike, innocent curiosity that is being formulated into this ideology of like, if you can't get anything from that thing or that person, don't even participate. Just observe and be a consumer on social and then keep your distance. Such a shitty, selfish way
Well,
of living.
it's a safety issue because we
Mm-hmm.
have, during that teenage years, there's a lot of postsynaptic pruning we call in the brain. So the brain is trying to process a lot of information. Unfortunately, it's very anxiety provoking. It's an insecure place to be. And what's interesting about the nature and sunlight and things of that sort is, first of all, it's better for your eyesight, first of all. Like the fact that you're not constantly on this LED device, it's better for your eyesight to see the sky. And, I want to give a shout out to the late Jay Nichols that passed. Um, he was the founder of this nonprofit called Blue Mind, where he wanted people to be around water and around nature because of like the nanometer wavelength of blue light that is good for our nervous system,
Mm.
and that's why he was a huge proponent of that, and I gave a couple of talks in his foundation about this. But basically, being around nature is giving you energies that we haven't even yet been able to completely quantify, in my opinion. So, I think the tech neck, all of these things that are going on right now, stealing the youth's attentional spotlight is something that we do need to pay attention to. And if we can simply interrupt it by informing them, like, hey, that this is a monetization pathway, and these algorithms are stealing your attentional spotlight to make money. And there's nothing wrong with that. But just knowing that, notice that, and give yourself a 20-minute break and go for a walk and be bored and experience nature and touch a tree and, ground yourself in some way. And I think that's, it doesn't have to be deep meditation or anything like that. I have this like 1 minute or even 3 second idea of dropping in on a daily basis
Mm.
where I say, just close your eyes, take one deep breath, like 10 counts, keep it for 10 breaths or keep it for a count of 10, then exhale with a positive intention that you would intend to make happen. And during that hold of just 10 seconds, feel the hum of existence. Just feel consciousness, and you breathe it out, and you're ready for the day. It's the we actually do that before each operation with my entire team. So
That is
it's
that
called the
is game
mindfulness moment.
changer right there, man. That is an absolute game changer. The other thing I like about nature, man, is it actually comes with consequences. It's not like all good. You touch the wrong plant, you might get poison ivy. You stay in the sun too long, you're gonna get sunburn. Right? Like you walk on something too hot, you're gonna burn your feet. And so it goes to show that more is not better. Better is better. Some is good. And there is a dosage responsibility there to bring it back to the big pharma conversation. Like the thing that's beautiful about some of these medications is that there's an optimal dosage based on a body weight, based on the symptoms, based on the various factors. I think that's fair. It's healthy. It's tough sometimes to manage dosage with things like marijuana and peptides. And so I think that is something that I hope to see in the future, a little bit more clarity there. So that way people
I
aren't,
love that you brought that up. I love that you brought that up because that's where big pharma shines,
yeah,
doing good science to figure out the dosage
yeah,
with everything. I'm very excited about the new announcement that the president and the Maha Group made about psychedelics.
mm-hmm.
So, instead of it being like in a dark place on the black market, only in a, EDM concert, you're gonna have, healthy substances that are available for the masses.
Yeah, that's well said. I've actually, maybe it was like a year and a half ago or so, I experienced with psychedelic mushrooms for the first time. But here's the different experience here. It wasn't, hey, I'm just going to take this thing and just, I don't know what the dosage is. I'm just going to do it on my own. It was a guided experience with a professional in an environment of people that were experts, and we had a process and a protocol to like guide you through the different elements of that experience. So I was safe. I was in a container to process my thoughts and be prompted, and there was music and vibration. And it wasn't just this like free for all, go do the thing, figure it out. And so I highly recommend that for people when they're trying new things, like even peptides. Do a blood panel, get a peek underneath the hood, understand what your baseline is. You might not even need them. And there might be food or lifestyle protocols that should come first. If you have an optimal health practitioner, they shouldn't just be shoving things at you unless there's like a huge deficiency in your blood panel and it can help you right away. And then from there, it's like maybe they start you on a lower dose and like just see how it goes over the course of time, because the ultimate goal is safety, security, but getting you back to doing the things that you love. And like you said, Big Pharma does a master class in dosage. I think this woo-woo perceived side, since we kind of painted it that way for the sake of this conversation, can do a better job of that. If you meditate for 3 hours a day, it's like, okay, you're probably like meditating too much and you're probably not dealing with something over here. And then if you're, sleeping 17 hours a day, it's like, all right, you're probably sleeping too much. If you're working out 10 hours a day, it's like, more is not better. Like, understand the optimal dosage so that way you can live a beautiful life for sure. The other thing I want to throw into this conversation is that, so many people are like, hey, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Like, lack of sleep might be one of the biggest silent killers. And we just had a famous Navy SEAL doctor on, and former Navy SEAL, really get into the nuts and bolts of sleep. How are you helping people better understand like sleep hygiene, optimal caffeine, and them really truly absorbing the fact that like lack of sleep's probably the thing affecting your mood, your cognition, your inflammation, your hormones, and your pain?
100%. Yes. I totally, that's one of my pentads of health. My pentad of health is mentation, nutrition, exercise, sleep, and pain. I draw that little pentad for each patient and we go through each one to see if we can make a 1 to 5% difference in any of those parameters because they improve health. Sleep hygiene is about being able to surrender to your physiology. If you can create an environment in which you surrender to the physiology of sleep, it already knows what to do. Your nervous system already knows what to do. If you're caffeinating yourself, if you're severely anxious, if you're suffering from bodily pain that doesn't allow you to get into a comfortable position for sleep, those challenges need to be met. Those challenges need to be addressed and met with the correct pharmacopoeia, plasticity measures, neurofeedback, meditation, turning off the lights, turning off the phone, etc. And also in some respects, being able to deal with nutritional inputs like, maybe a little fasting or not eating late meals or not having caffeine too late. But it's one of the most important ways by which our nervous system resets itself. It actually provides the opportunity for us to have memory, for us to have joy, have connection. Sensory deprivation and sleep deprivation are the two torture mechanisms. Like sleep deprivation is an actual torture mechanism. So if you're depriving yourself of sleep, you are torturing your nervous system. But another thing you brought up that was really important about the woo culture is that, not having the milligrams down is that, we have so much great information that's spread out. And it used to be, you used to go to the library and get an encyclopedia or go to Google and know everything. And I feel like that's where bodies like the FDA and the pharma can really help us and that's what our nonprofit, for example, is really trying to do, is to say, okay, what is safe, what is harmful, what is beneficial? And that dosage difference can mean difference between life and death. We saw the opiate epidemic with fentanyl overdoses that were absolutely unnecessary. I can't say enough about how important it is to get the regulators to know what's going on in public, to what's going on in the black market, and inform the public as soon as they can through research protocols.
Yeah, I agree with you that the FDA and some of these regulated organizations can do a great job creating structure for us, because the most intelligent people now don't necessarily have the most information. Information is everywhere with ChatGPT and all the AI, Perplexity, Claude. But I do think that the most intelligent people are understanding the right questions to ask. They're asking certain things. Hey, for a woman in her luteal phase, what's the right dosage to manage inflammation using something like BPC 157? She's not at risk for cancer, doesn't have a history of this. Here are some of her blood health biomarkers. What's the optimal dosage for a 5'5", 142-pound woman whose goals are X, Y, and Z? And these are the parameters that I'm put in place. You get the information, and then you say, okay, were there any questions that I forgot to ask here that you potentially think are responsible and appropriate to the safety and care and the future of this woman that you would integrate into the feedback associated with what I'm prompting you with? Okay, now that's a different conversation than BPC 157 is great. I heard some influencers say it. It's relatively cost effective and relatively cheap. Now it's over here, and I believe on this side of the political spectrum, so I'm just going to grab onto it and do the thing. It's like, that's not responsible either. So I'm not saying to do this or to do that. I am saying to learn to ask really responsible questions based on the variables at play.
We're all becoming prompting experts, and by asking the right questions, the most important thing we can do with these AI tools. I also say always challenge the first prompt by completely asking the opposite or taking an opposing point of view, because it will tell you the side effects and the black box warnings and everything else. Because most of these LLMs are, kind of yes men in the corporation.
Yeah.
They just want to encourage you to continue to engage with them. So if you give them the opposing point of view, they will give you a much more balanced structure at the end.
Yeah, that's great. I also think this one's kind of painful for me, but in basketball, we always watched film, right? Like you'd watch your practices, you watch your game, you could see the things you did really well, you could see the things you didn't do so well. So I do that with each podcast. And I'm like, hey, what are the things that I did really well in this conversation? What are the things I didn't do well in this conversation? And you get that feedback to help analyze the different things that can help make you better at your craft. And so it doesn't always feel good, but it is something that you don't label it as good or bad. It just is. It's data. It's a data point to then learn from. And it's a dosage thing. You think, oh, I said this too much, or I leaned too much into this side of things versus that, or whatever. I think it's fun. And I think pain seems to be the tool that gets most people to change. Adversity seems to be a disruptor. It's why people lean towards workouts, cold plunge, hard conversations. But what I want you to help me understand for people to understand that pain is simply communication. It's not punishment. And then based on that communication, you have the opportunity to make said decision.
I think pain is the most powerful signal our nervous system has in its armamentarium. And sometimes it's a gift. My patients, when they have pain, but they have no weakness, no numbness, no paralysis, I always tell them, thankfully, this is nerve irritation, not nerve death. And that's the most important thing in my craft, is to avoid nerve death. And I think obviously emotional pain, psychological pain, pain that motivates, pain that's been long standing in a nervous system can change the circuitry and the habits. And what we want is to promote the concept of rewiring and shifting that pain to understand it, to go toward healing it, and to also use it as the most powerful data point to change our lives for the better. I think change is happening anyway. So you need to use that pain and use that stress point to create nourishment for your nervous system.
Yeah. The body whispers before it screams. And so I think that meditation allows us to be better listeners to the whispers, to then recognize, okay, what is our posture? What's our sleep position? What's our nutrition? When I have an interaction with that person, how do I feel on the other side? When I watch that show, or when I listen to that, or scroll and see certain people on social media, that's a form of nutrition as well. How do I feel on the other side of that? And I think becoming better question askers, like we talked about, for information, to direct the right information for what we're trying to do, very important. But also becoming better listeners. And for the single folk out there, be more interested than interesting if you're in the dating world. feel like a lot of people are trying to sell themselves all the time, but I think like really being curious to understand people's stories, meet them where they're at. I think being a buyer instead of constantly selling is a great space to be. And then
I love
understanding
that.
how to navigate between the two so you're not just, one-sided and one-dimensional.
That's great advice. I like another thing you can put it is you can be a product of the algorithm, or you can be outside the algorithm, just staying curious
Yeah.
about what your algorithm is feeding you. So I love the way you put that.
Optimization without recovery becomes self-destruction. Everybody wants the red light, the methylene blue, the sauna, cold plunge, working out a certain way, the supplements that match their genes and all the things. But they're kind of stepping over hundreds to pick up pennies because they're missing sleep, they're missing sunlight, they're missing bonding, right? Like how often do we not engage anymore just knocking on somebody's door and being like, hey, I missed you. I was thinking about you. It's like, hey, can I get something from you? You want to buy my thing? What's going on there? Like everybody wants to optimize, but nobody wants to do the sexy, simple things.
Yeah, it's, just like meditation. I mean, our meditation spa now offers, psychedelic assisted therapy and all this tech. But the simplest thing that I always tell my patients is, breathing is free. Deep breathing is free. Gentle 3-minute meditation is free. And same thing with those connections. Our hormones like oxytocin that skyrockets when you actually bond with someone. Those are very powerful indicators for our brain health that we can utilize, and that's a social connection and having friends that you care about and they deeply care about you has been shown to be one of the biggest preventers of dementia.
Yeah.
So I think deep connection among humans is one of those like health indicators that will matter more and more and more as we get into this epidemic of digital isolation, or having only digital friends or more digital friends than real friends. And we all suffer from that. But ultimately, I think um, it's like a little seesaw. Like you'll go to an extreme, and then people will realize that some of the most basic things like sunlight and connection and giving a hug to your buddy is actually some of the most powerful medicines.
Yeah. I've come to realize during our conversation today that free is expensive because when it's perceived as free, it's perceived as invaluable or not valuable, rather. And so then people are not accountable to actually doing it. Like I know being in San Diego and you being in LA, it's like, well, we pay the sunshine tax. I want to take advantage of the sunshine. It's like when I make an investment into a coach, it's like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to be on time, and I'm going to be present versus, what I notice is if like you make yourself available, hey, let's go grab a coffee. You're going through it right now. Like, let me be there. People aren't totally invested. It's like, oh, this is my friend. Let me soften it a little bit. Let me just like not be totally present. When you see that with coaching services, when you see that, I'm sure like you'll go to a family get together and people are like, oh, you're a doctor. I got a quick question for you. You like give them advice and then they take none of it. And you're like, if you came and paid this much money for a consult and you had to go through the process to schedule this with my assistant or my team, and then we did the thing, you would for sure implement that strategy and it would work. What are your thoughts on free being expensive?
It's so true. I feel like it's metabolically expensive because it's not, the brain just says, well, that's available anyway. And I hope it never happens, but our air and our water and our atmosphere and all the things we completely take for granted are more important to our health than anything else we could possibly imagine. Sleep is like that as well. So we are overstressed and overstimulated in a world. It's in an ocean of data, and unless we realize how our nervous system is wired, Elon's wired differently. You and I are wired differently. Everybody's wired differently. I think we just need to realize how our nervous system is wired and give it the appropriate reset as well as realizing that stress can be nourishment, realizing that we can use some of that stress to nourish our nervous system. And then there's a lot of free that's expensive. There is sleep, there's meditation, deep breath work, sunshine, nature, just simply hearing the birds in a park. All of that is free, and it should be utilized.
Simply going for a walk can solve most of life's problems. Last thing I want to poke the bear on is this psychological concept of mentality. Oftentimes people think that mindset is everything. You see that quote kind of everywhere, and in some ways it is. But like, until you consistently make the decision and program the operating system that certain things are non-negotiables, I personally believe that physically doing the thing helps shape the mind, and then the mind then gets programmed to consistently do the thing. And I've heard
I love the way you put that.
Yeah, because I've heard certain influencers talk about like, oh, like you can just like mentally quit an addiction, cocaine, alcohol, whatever. It's like, that's trying to like snort your way through the addiction by mentally just like, it doesn't work that way. You have to physically find something that like matters more than the addiction, or you have to hit a version of pain or rock bottom before you're willing to change. And so when we look at mindset versus taking action, I feel like consuming more information, looking up things on ChatGPT, trying to get more well-versed is a high performer's version of procrastination. It's like, no, take the action and then you're going to learn as you go. You're never going to have the perfect plan. You're going to have to jump in the ocean and swim a little bit. What can we do based on all the different nuggets that we shared with people today to get people to take action for their nervous system versus, oh, I know to meditate. I know to go for the walk. I know to eat the good food. It's like, okay, well, why aren't you doing it? Is it the financial investment that you need somebody to hold your hand to get you to do it? Everybody knows, but not everybody does.
I mean, again, you threw out a bunch of nuggets. What I like to say is ultimately we're a combination of cognition and function. And when it goes top down from the brain down, that's a top down mechanism. Some people say it starts with mindset. I'm one of those people. You're one of the people that goes, well, if I make my body move a certain way, it will energize my mind and it will get to my goal. And I love the fact that we came through this almost like a yin and yang through two different mindsets. So if you just go for a walk or do something with your body, that's a bottom up mechanism that also feeds the nervous system. Our intestines, our heart, our skin are bottom up mechanisms of our nervous system. And then they power the brain in ways that, it's 90% of our energy of the brain is the bottom up power up mechanism. And that's why when you say do the action, it actually feeds the goal that much more. And that's why exercise is so powerful for the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say it starts with mindset, and I am in that camp where I really like willpower, I've been studying it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And at the NeuroVella, the Brain Spa, I always tell people some people need heavy metal and some people need country music and some people need classical music. And you just have to figure out which one is your nervous system connecting with the best. So all of us have corridors for biohacking our nervous system, for longevity optimization, using stress as nourishment. And we have to find through trial and error what works. I've never had a bad time at the gym, even if I'm on crutches, even if I'm in a sling. The gym always feeds me a delta of benefit. It's like a magical place. I'll always find something that when I leave the gym, I'm like, that was a positive experience. And meditation is a little tougher. Meditation sometimes can get to your pain points, can find you ruminating, can find you anxious. So it's a harder exercise for the cognitive machinery to give you the same delta of benefit. It's a skill. It's a practice skill. But just like you said, practicing it is so important. The orthopraxy of saying, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up the next day. I'm going to show up the next day. That habituates as a bottom-up mechanism and shifts the brain into action and optimization. So That's a huge conversation. I love that you brought that up. And I think the bottom up mechanisms of just show up, just start the movement, start the practice is a huge biohack into optimizing the nervous system.
Yeah, it's so well said. And just helping people understand whether they start with the body or they start with the head, simply start. Commit to something, and then based on the commitment, you learn the better questions to ask. You learn more information. You don't know what you don't know in the beginning. You might be a perceived expert, and then all of a sudden new information enters the field of play. And today was super fun to chop it up and just like touch on all things nervous system, health, wellness, mindset, lifestyle, and the inner child, understanding like where a lot of these programs get downloaded when we're very young, and helping people also understand that upgrading the operating system is very important. Any last minute thoughts that you'd love to share with people based on our conversation today?
Yeah, I would say, one of the most challenging thing is that you are truthful to yourself. You can look at yourself in the eye and you are, your mindset, your intentions for health, your intentions for optimization are followed by your actions. And I think that's really important because sometimes we say, yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we're going to do it, but we don't actually follow through. And I just want to say, like put the intention into action and that will feed you a thousandfold.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Before we conclude today, can we drop in together? Can we go through one of those drop
Oh,
ins with you with
yes,
the 10-second inhale, 10-second
I'd
hold,
love
10
to.
second exhale? That'd be amazing to do with you.
Great. So we're going to do a moment of mindfulness. We're going to close our eyes and take an inhale for a count of 10, hold for 10, and exhale and keep holding. Great. Wonderful.
So simple, but so profound. You just get a little bit grounded. You inhale positivity, you exhale all the things not serving you in that moment. Thanks for letting us spend that time with you today, man. That was really fun.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Where,
So stoked for knowing you and look forward to staying connected.
yeah, this is fun. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram as Dr. Vokshoor, Drvokshoor. I'm on LinkedIn, Amir Vokshoor MD. I'm on Facebook. We have a practice called Neurosurgical Spine Group. We have a brain spa called NeuroVella, so neurovella.com. It's being revamped right now, and the brain spa offers everything from meditation to vibration chairs to VR to photobiomodulation, all the way to psychedelic assisted therapy through our partners at Mystic Health. And I'm a neurosurgeon that does spine surgery. So anyone that's listening to any of your patrons that simply want a free MRI review, we've done that as a service for anyone that's been on podcasts and listen to podcasts. So happy to do that. Just call 800-899-0101 and ask for a free MRI review. And I'm happy to provide that for all your patrons and really honored. And it's such a privilege to be able to spend time with you.
Yeah, today was great, man. Guys, if you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Amir Vokshoor, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time, bye-bye.